Welcome to the Geek Easy fellow geeks. Let's open a drink of a beverage of your choice because today is another episode of Frightful Fridays, in which I will be going over the last voyage of the Demeter. Let's see if I can show this without a glare on there. Okay. For those of you who do not know what the Demeter is, it has a direct connection to the book Dracula. It's in the book, not very much. And the only movie version that I'm absolutely 100% sure that it's mentioned in is Bram Stoker's Dracula. The Demeter is the ship in which Dracula takes going from Romania to England. And it is just mentioned briefly at one point in the book, when he Dracula actually arrives, the ship crashes in Whitechapel, I think it is, with no crew left alive on it, and there was a wolf seen leaving the ship and running up the stairs to disappear. That wolf was Dracula, and there's a couple excerpts from the captain's log, talking about how during the trip crew members kept disappearing, and they couldn't figure out why. Turns out that Dracula was sneaking out and using them as food for the trip between Romania and England, and then when the ship crashes, he turned it into his wolf form, takes off, and then goes and and he had that's where he kept his 10 boxes of dirt, his coffins for his locations all around London. Now, so this movie is the writer's interpretation of what happened during that trip. It focuses mainly on the crew of said ship. You have the captain, who is a guy from Game of Thrones. Not one of the major players, but he did have a significant role during the 3 or 4 or 5 seasons of it. That's the biggest name. You've got the XO, and the central character, a younger black man who is a doctor. He was brought on as one of the able-bodied seamen to do it. And then there is a young lady who comes in about halfway through the movie. She was a stowaway. Right. So, and then he comes on there, and the only reason he is brought onto the ship is because a couple of the people who were hired to supplement the crew saw the sign of the dragon on a couple of the boxes, and they're like, yep, no, F this, we're out. right? The symbol of Dracula's family lineage was a dragon. Vlad Dracul, his father was Vlad the Dragon. Dracula, son of the dragon, which was Vlad Tepes. Anyway. And then starts going along, boom, boom, boom. Now, for the most part, there wasn't any issues with what they did with the story, because there's not a lot of information in the log that tells what happened. You know, it's just, I don't remember the exact details, but you know, like this is a so and so disappeared on this day, you know, last night, boom, you know. So they're just accounting, yes, you know, a couple people have died, crew's getting restless, yada, 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 and then they, when it crashes, I think it was the captain or somebody was found tied to the helm. Now, for the most part, this movie held up for the most part for the first 2 acts. I mean, I had some minor issues with it here and there up to that point, but you know, it's like, okay, whatever. But once the 3rd act started, that's when it really started falling apart. One thing that they did is when they started showing Dracula, he was always shown, if you can see this right here, like a giant bat, like a man-shaped bat, which, okay, no, why? I mean, if that's not his natural form. His natural form is always just human. So I'm not 100% sure. Okay. You might want to focus in. The one right there is the guy from Game of Thrones, and the other guy at the other end is the Doctor. Right. But if you look at that right there, that's what he's supposed to look like, and that's just bad. But some of the things that kind of got me was they're trying to figure out how these crew members were dying. And you know, one of the issues I had was when Dracula is killing these people, he's like doing it really violently and like smashing their heads on the deck of the ship and just leaving these huge things of blood. Lying around, just, you know, it's like, okay, that would kind of arise suspicion. You know, I understand he didn't give, you know, trying to show that he just didn't give a rat's tuchus or anything like that, but just, you know, and all that. But then, so they're finally, you know, the crew members are like, okay, we need to search the ship. So they search the ship 2 or 3 times, don't find anything. There's a storm one night, one of the boxes of dirt falls over, opens up, and that's where they find the girl. she is suffering from blood loss. And there's a mark on her neck, just like a mark on the neck of some of the animals that had been killed, and then a mark on the neck like one of the guys they had already found. Indication, hey, you know, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. You know, there's a connection between these, it would seem, but they don't really seem to understand. And she is sitting there saying, you know, there's this guy up at the castle. You know, he's supposed to be feeding on blood. You know, yada yada yada. They don't. It takes them a long time to go and just say, when you start searching again, you know, after till one or two other people die. So they search the ship again, but it's just, as soon as, you know, she said that, it's like, okay, let's, you know, they started when they left Romania. She was in one of the boxes of dirt. So they're checking. Wouldn't you think to check the boxes? And at one point they actually do check the boxes, but then they open it up and they're like, it took them, you know, quite a few minutes to sit there and think, hey, wait a minute. This woman was in the boxes. Maybe there's somebody else in it. But of course he wasn't in there. But then there's a specific line where the doctor, that guy right there, says, we know where he sleeps. So what do? Nothing. They don't keep an eye out of the box. They don't post somebody at the box to sit there and see when he's coming back. Or if he comes back. Because they know he disappears at some point. He's probably coming back. You know, whoever's killing him is probably coming back to this specific box they found that they figured was the one that he was in. Yeah, we know it's really sleep, but fuck it. We're not going to sit there and, you know, figure out that he's here. Which is really annoying. It's just flat out stupid, and you deserve to die if you do something like that. So there's those two things. And then also the other point, I mean, you know that everyone's going to die are supposed to die in this, because no one, when the ship arrives in England, everyone's dead, or there's no one on the ship. But one of the things they did in this movie, which was kind of somewhat interesting, is they had a couple of the people who died after, you know, 2 or 3 days, they come back as vampires. She said something that, you know, there's these people that feed off blood, and now they're coming back as this. It's still not sinking into these people. But one of the things that happens is they start burning in the sun. Which is, if you're going to make this a direct correlation to the book Dracula, that shouldn't be happening at all. Because if you read Dracula, Dracula can go out during the daytime. He does. He's out in the daytime. He's just not as powerful, and he's vulnerable, you know, more vulnerable during the daytime than he would be at night. At night, he's at full power. He's got all, you know, he can shapeshift into whatever. He can become mist. He can do all this stuff. Daytime, that's not what happens, but he doesn't burn up. So, in order, if they're going to make this movie connected to the books, that shouldn't have happened. Maybe I'm just being too much of a little, maybe I'm just being too much of a pain, or literalist on that one. And then, they had to, this is minor spoiler here, so skip ahead a minute or two if you don't want to find out about the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, the doctor survives. And he had fallen overboard fighting Dracula at the end in the storm that brought the ship up to, it was Whitby. I think it was Whitby, not Whitechapel, but Whitby. And he goes off and he's set out to try and find Dracula. He actually kind of runs into, he's in a bar when Dracula goes in there and follows them, and so it's set up so he's going to start hunting Dracula, I guess in a later movie or something like that, which again, Dracula actually gets killed, a little while later in the book anyway, but and there's nothing mentioned about this in the book, but that doesn't really make sense. Why didn't he just go say something to somebody? I'm sure they would have just said, hey, you're nuts, but word would have gotten back to, Van Helsing or somebody, and, whatever. But just, so the movie just sort of collapsed at the end and turned into this, by the numbers movie that just kind of collapsed in on itself. And they were trying to set up for maybe a sequel or series or something like that, which I seriously doubt is going to happen. And they spent too much money on special effects, which looked fantastic, by the way. The special effects were incredible, but didn't spend enough money or time trying to make the plot make sense. So I'm going to give this a 2.75 out of 5. And again, it's slightly above mid, or right around mid. And so it's up to you as to whether you want to watch it or not. I'm not going to do it again. But let me know in the comments below if you watched it and what you thought of it. Like, subscribe, and most of all, enjoy your horror movies.